Great. Let us now look at implementation methods. Just for context, once you know the factors, you choose how to build and deliver. Each method handles change and risk differently, so pick the one that matches your project. Don't just always go for a default one because it's not one of those factors where it's not one of those matters where you can have a one size fits all solution. So here are the implementation methods that you can have. You can actually go for waterfall, which is sequential phases, each finished before the next. Great for stable, well-defined projects, rigid if requirements then change. Waterfall method is normally used for traditional projects such as building projects and so forth, and all this knowledge you can actually have prior to the beginning of the project itself. They don't work so well when you go into more modern technologies such as software development, where changes can actually happen as the software is being developed. I have had situations whereby as I'm building, for example, a website, the client then gets in touch and says the font is too big, the font the font colors are not matching my business colors. I have to literally change there and then. So waterfall wouldn't work there. That's where you would go for agile methodologies, which is short repeating cycles, usually called sprints, depending on the agile framework that you choose. The most popular these days being the Scrum methodology, which is then delivering work in pieces, flexible for changing needs, unlike waterfall, which is one-shot plan. So with agile methodologies, you are able to be getting in touch with your client and understanding more and getting more context over to what they really need when they're talking about this particular project, and that obviously makes you be able to tailor make your project to make it possible for them to achieve the requirements that they actually need you to be able to get to. Then there's also DevOps, which is development and operations. DevOps is literally a shortcut for that, which unites the developers who build software with the operations team who run it for continuous delivery. It extends Agile by automating the release, not just the building. So Agile is focusing on the building of the software itself. But remember, a software is not built for the developers to just watch in their offices and so forth. It's actually built for the real world. And in the real world, the software is actually used by real people. So we need to find a way to make these two teams be able to communicate effectively between the developers of the software and the people who are actually using the software all at the same time. So once that is then done, things can then work out smoothly, getting the feedback from the people who are using the software on the ground and the people who are actually developing the software. That's then what we term by DevOps. We also have what is called Lean. Lean maximizes value and cuts waste. Literally, you could think of it from the idea of lean meat, where we don't have so much fat on the meat, it's just proteins. That helps me to remember some of these terms. So this is borrowed from the Toyota's production system, which is focused on efficiency rather than a fixed schedule. And then we have Spiral, which is risk-driven repeated loops, re-evaluating at each turn. This is suited for large evolving systems where risk must be managed. So these are the different methods that you can then carry out your project. And as I said, it's never a one size fits all. It's always a matter of making sure that you choose the one that best suits your requirements. So for example, a fintech startup in Cape Town uses Agile to ship its app in 2-week sprints so it can react to user feedback fast. A bank's core ledger upgrade a ledger upgrade uses waterfall because the requirements are fixed and mistakes are costly. So the two differences are the fact that on the first startup, they are actually more concerned about the feedback from their clients, whether the clients actually like this application or not, and therefore they need to be able to update whatever feedback they get within 2 weeks. While when you're upgrading something as rigid as a ledger of a bank, which literally has got all the transactions historically and presently that the bank has been getting into, that literally requires you to minimize the risk, because if you are actually going to be waiting for feedbacks from everyone, there could be a lot of risk that then gets introduced. In that case, you need to then use waterfall. So you then see that Agile, in as much as it gets a lot of feedbacks and involves a lot of people, there's also a lot of risk of you deviating from the plan, and sometimes even some possibility of some loss in terms of time and other resources. While with waterfall, everything is rigid and properly written down. That then minimizes the amount of risk that you have. Let's say something is to go out of the plan. So waterfall is literally like building a house from a final blueprint, while agile is like cooking and testing as you go, adjusting the recipe at each round. Now, we could ask yourself why it is called waterfall. It got its name from Winston Royce, who in the who actually drew all this in around 1970, where phases flow downward like water. And so the waterfall literally got its name from Winston Royce's 1970 diagram, where phases flow downward like water. So Agile came then from the 2001 Agile Manifesto, where 17 developers at a certain company called Snowbird in Utah in America came up with the idea of being agile, meaning being able to move quickly. And then around 2009, that's where we come up with the idea of DevOps to mash up which is a mashup of development and operations. So all these technologies, they have been building on top of each other as the years were passing by. They were not just invented in one day. It was literally coming from the normal waterfall methods, and then developers realizing we're not moving as fast and as flexibly as we want. Let's actually write an agile manifesto that stipulates how we can actually move fast as developers, that then produce the whole idea of agile project management. And later on, they realize as developers, we are so cut off from the people who are actually using the software. So the bridge between the users of the software, the people who literally implement it on the ground, or the operations, is so separate from the developers, such that some information is then lost between translation, as so they say. So we need to unite this so that they have better communication between them. As developers are working, they have feedback from the people who literally use the software on the ground. And as the people are using the software on the ground, they have input also from the developers to see how things can be done better. And that's how DevOps came about. Now, the next thing that we'll look at is system types and rollout strategies. So you, in context, you also choose what to obtain and how to switch it on. So build versus buy decides the system's origin. So the rollout strategy decides how you move people onto it. There is what we call turnkey versus custom. Turnkey is ready-made and vendor delivered. That is fast, less control, and custom built is literally tailored to you, which is slow and you have full control. The difference is literally just like you going to a tailor to get your suit and you going into a shop and buying a suit. Obviously, the going into a shop and buying a suit is faster, but the sizes might not really be matching your body type so well. While having it custom built might take time, but it will be fitting exactly to your proportions. And then there's also enterprise resource planning, or ERP, which is one integrated suite covering finance, human resources, and stock. It is distinct from a single purpose package because the modules share one database. So instead of having so many different systems that are working together, which could produce a lot of errors, you could have one place where everything is integrated together, covering all the different departments of your company, and that then makes it possible for you to deliver on your promises faster. We also have the idea of doing everything in-house, meaning in-house developed, where you actually have your developers in-house at your company who build, and these are built and owned by your own team. And this is maximum control and intellectual property, but you carry all the maintenance, meaning you need to be able to pay these people because they don't come cheap. You need to be able to maintain these resources because these are complicated pieces of software and pieces of hardware. So this is usually very expensive and only available to very well-funded organizations such as your military and so forth. Then there's also what we call the direct or big bang, which is switch everyone over at once. Literally, you are saying you want to change something. Instead of you having to do this in phases so that you minimize the risk, you will literally say we are waking up tomorrow and we are using a new system altogether. This is fast and cheap, but highest risk if something breaks. So this is a system probably that is so new that you have never used it before. So you switching to this new system could actually mean benefits of a new system, but also could mean that all the risks that come with that particular new system, if they are not well catered for, everything could all break down and you have nowhere else to fall back on. Another one would be parallel versus first, where parallel runs old system and new system together until the new system is proven to be safe. So this is obviously safe and costly because running two systems at once might actually mean running two teams at the same time, meaning paying twice for the price of one thing. This obviously lowers the risk of the new system not being so good, and you can always revert back to the old system. And also, as people are getting to learn the new system, they will still be using the old system, so there's no downtime. But obviously, it's costly. Then you can also use first, which introduces stage by stage. This also balances the risk a little bit, but it's slower. So if it's something that you want to be countrywide soon, first wouldn't be the best, Big Bang would be the best. But obviously the risk with Big Bang would be too much. If something goes wrong, it means the whole country is brought to a halt. So it's a matter of choosing how you can actually roll out these systems correctly and what then suits your use cases in the real world. You don't want a situation whereby with all great intentions of updating to the latest systems, you end up bringing business to a halt. An example of this is ShopRite rolling out a new till system store by store, which is first. So any glitch hits one branch, not all 2,000 at once. And then a small non-profit instead switches its whole office over a weekend, meaning Big Bang, which is much cheaper. Obviously, a small non-profit can be able to do this because they don't have too many branches to be dealing with. But ShopRite wouldn't be in a situation where they can just change within a switch, just like that. So in plain terms, Big Bang is jumping into the pool while Parallel is keeping one foot on the step until you are sure, while First is wading in deeper each day. Okay, so historically, why it's called Big Bang is because this is a direct cut over, which is called Big Bang after the cosmology theory, where everything starts at once, like the beginning of the universe scientifically. The enterprise resource planning was coined by the analyst firm called Gartner in 1990, evolving from the 1970s factory material requirements planning, or MRP systems. So that's how all these systems came to be what we know them today. Now let's look at recommending the right fit. So we then end with a recommendation for the a recommendation for the right fit for your solution. You match a method to the context and defend it. So define the scenario, list options, evaluate each, then recommend with reasons. Okay, so first of all, you look at dynamic environment, which is requirements that change often, which then means choose agile so that frequent feedback and change are actually cheap. You're actually having this as part of how you do business. We also have what we call static environments, which are the opposite of dynamic environments, where you have requirements that are stable and known, where you choose waterfall for predictable documented delivery, which then obviously makes it work better because you know there's no much changes that happen. Everything follows a blueprint, just like building of maybe a skyscraper. Then we also have what is called needs enhanced, where an existing system that keeps where we have an existing system that keeps growing. Here you need to choose spiral, so each loop refines and extends it while managing the risk. So instead of just having to go for Big Bang and so forth, you literally have a method called spiral, where you have a change that is done, and then the lessons learned from that change actually feed into the next until you are done with your project. We also have what is called packaged solution, which is buying a ready product and here a V model actually fits best, which is verifying and validating against fixed specifications. And as you answer the questions, always define the scenario, list the options, and evaluate each against the factors. Then recommend one with a clear rationale. In your learner guide, you'll find a lot of more information about these different particular methods, and this will then help you to be able to answer the questions effectively. Now, an example, we'll be recommending Agile for a Johannesburg e-commerce startup. This is fast changing market, but waterfall for a payroll system, which has fixed rules. So same skill, opposite answer because of the context. Where you have an e-commerce startup, Agile works best because they have to learn and make changes as they go very fast. But a payroll system for an organization is something that follows certain very fixed rules. So if you try to rush it, you might actually end up in more problems than you started with. Now, in plain terms, like a doctor, some same symptoms, different patients can need different treatment. You diagnose the context before you prescribe. All right. So for rapidly changing business, recommend an implementation method and then be able to justify that will be obviously your agile. All right. Let's meet on the next video as we go to Unit Standard 2.